So recently, I played through every single 2D Mario for the first time, and it was a very interesting experience just getting to play through all the Mario games and see what they're about and how they are. It was very fun for the most part. But also, as a Sonic fan, I found it a fascinating experience because I've always known, of course, that Sonic is heavily influenced by Mario. In fact, in my first Sonic 1 video, I accused Sonic of being a Mario ripoff, which some people actually got upset at me for saying. But now that I've actually played the Mario games more than ever, I feel that's true. There are some things, in fact, in Sonic that are taken almost directly one-for-one from Mario, which was really interesting to me. But there's actually a lot about Sonic that feels like it's taken directly from Mario, so much, in fact, that I think it's worth a video talking about these things. And we're going to start with the more obvious surface-level similarities between the games, and over time we'll get to the more deeper, more interesting things toward the end of the video. And of course, the first thing that we have to talk about is the most obvious one. The very concept of Sonic exists directly because of Mario. The very idea of having a company mascot platformer character, where do you think that came from for Sonic with Sega? Obviously, they were trying to recreate what Nintendo did with Mario. And along with that, we get a lot of other obvious similarities, like there's a number of parallels between Mario characters and Sonic characters, and also the Sonic franchise has kind of tried to ape what Mario has done with spin-offs in the past, where, oh, we get Mario Party, well here's Sonic Shuffle. It was even made by the same freaking developers. And, I mean, if we really want to jump forward, we can get to something like Sonic 4, which is obviously trying to ape off the success of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and Sonic Lost World, which is just trying to be a Mario game entirely. But I want to focus on this video with the earlier influences of Mario and Sonic, the stuff that impacted how Sonic was conceptualized and what they wanted Sonic to be from the beginning, and how Mario kind of shaped Sonic in ways that maybe people don't really think about that often. Like, one really obvious thing is rings in Sonic are taken directly from coins. They work in almost the same way. They're spread all over the level. They generally are used to kind of guide you on the right path. And if you get 100 of them, then you get an extra life. Of course, rings have that extra wrinkle of losing them when you get hit, but clearly rings come directly from coins. That's pretty obvious. I want to talk more about some more interesting things. Like the power-ups, for example, definitely some clear influence from Mario going on there. You have the shield in Sonic, just the base normal shield, and that's kind of like the mushroom in Mario. Doesn't really grant you any fancy new abilities, but it gives you an additional hit without any consequences. Well, I guess technically in Mario, when you're big, you can break blocks and you have a larger hitbox, but you get the point. It's close enough. But it's when we get to Sonic 3 and Knuckles and the elemental shields that the similarities become really apparent. Different kinds of power-ups that grant you different abilities, and if you take a hit, you lose those abilities. Very, very similar, obviously something they took from Mario. But another thing that I realized they probably took from Mario, I was playing through Mario World, and you get Yoshi, who's like a different kind of power-up, a different tier of power-up. You know, you can have the Fire Flower or the Cape or whatever, and then on top of that, you can also have Yoshi as an extra hit point. And when you get hit, you lose Yoshi, and he starts running around like crazy, and you have the opportunity to jump back on Yoshi and regain that extra hit point. And while playing through the game, I realized it's very similar to rings in Sonic when you think about it. Especially when you're down to that one ring left and you get hit and, oh no, gotta re-get the ring, and it's going all crazy and you gotta make sure you get it while also avoiding damage. Like another similar thing that I felt playing Mario World is trying to go after to regain Yoshi and taking additional hits or even dying because you're so desperate that you're not really focusing. And that exact same kind of thing can happen in Sonic. That mad scramble to regain your protection is very similar in both games, and I have to think that maybe Yoshi was the influence for the concept of losing rings and being able to recollect them, which, you know what that means. Get ready for me to call rings Yoshis in a Sonic Was Always Good video. It's also interesting to see how we have these two similar concepts, but they are done differently in Mario versus Sonic. In Mario, the recoverable hit point is the thing that sits on top of all of your other power-ups. It protects you from losing them. Whereas Sonic, it's the other way around. The recoverable hit point is your last line of defense. And I personally find that to be a more interesting design, as there's more consequences to taking every single hit. If you have, the fire shield, you don't want to lose the fire shield. Like, I'd much rather lose rings. I get more careful and more cautious when I have a power-up in Sonic because I want to keep the ability it gives me. Whereas with Yoshi, it also does give you extra abilities, and it is a power-up in its own right, but because it's something that protects you from all loss of anything else, I feel very safe and comfortable with Yoshi, and I feel like that's a bit wrong for Mario. In Mario, I always feel like the power-up should be high stakes, high risk, high reward. You get this really powerful ability that you can use for all kinds of cool stuff, but if you mess up, you lose it, and it feels really bad going back down to your base form after having such a great ability, because you're like, no, I could have used that, Yoshi kind of takes away from that a little bit, in my opinion. Another thing I noticed that could maybe be influenced by Mario is Tails and the way he flies. It kind of works a bit like the Tanuki leaf in Mario 3. You tap the button repeatedly to ascend, you let go to descend. That's pretty much exactly how it works in Mario, so may have been inspired by that, possibly? So the shields and rings in Sonic, to me, definitely feel like you could at least make an argument that they were probably heavily influenced by the Mario series, but there is one thing for sure that is undeniable was directly taken from Mario, and that would be the momentum and physics emphasis of Sonic. Sonic is iconic with momentum. People always talk about it with the Sonic games. That idea of having variable movement speeds. It's not binary movement. You're either going or you're not. That you accelerate up to your base speed and you maintain your speed. You don't just lose it the moment you let go of the input. That is a very fundamental aspect of Sonic, but it doesn't even come from Sonic. It comes from Mario. What Sonic did was it took that idea from Mario and said, okay, well, let's do more with it. Let's expand it. Let's allow slopes and gravity to interact with your speed. Let's allow slopes to redirect your speed. Let's allow them to affect how your jumps work. Let's allow the player to exceed their base movement speed using the terrain. Even the concept of rolling in Sonic, I found may be something directly taken from Mario. When you get to Mario 3 and slopes are introduced in that game, you can hit down and then you'll slide down the slope and you'll gain a bunch of speed. And immediately, to me, it felt just like Sonic, where I'm going forward, I have all this speed, I want to keep it going, and I get to a slope, I get to a downward incline, and I hit down and let Mario automatically go as he builds up even more speed, just like rolling in the Sonic games. And another property of rolling is that it turns Sonic's entire body to a hitbox, and you can just barrel through enemies. And I was thinking about that in relation to Koopa shells. How normally in Mario, the only way you can take out enemies is by jumping on them, but you can use a Koopa shell and you can hit it, and then that can go ahead of you and kill all the enemies just going along the ground. And the way it bounces off of things, it ricochets around, kind of feels a bit almost pinball-y in a way, and it made me think like maybe part of the idea of rolling in Sonic, rolling into enemies, was like, we're gonna turn you into the Koopa shell, something along those lines, maybe, I don't know, it felt like there might be something there. But by far, the biggest thing that I realized playing through the Mario games, especially Mario 1, that was probably a big influence on Sonic, was the core game design and a lot of the general concepts and the way that these games are built. It's actually quite similar when you really look at it. A lot of people were saying in the comments of my video reviewing all the 2D Mario games that I was playing Mario wrong, that I was trying to play it like Sonic, but I don't really agree with that, especially when we're talking Mario 1. I would say that it's more so that Sonic is built on a lot of the same foundational ideas as Mario, and so the games naturally have similarities in how they play. Because it seems that the way generally most people play 2D Mario games is they kind of take it slow, and they do a lot of exploring around to get coins, extra lives, secret exits, collectibles in games where those are available. And yes, the games are definitely built to facilitate that, absolutely, but I also feel that they are built to facilitate speed-based gameplay of just barreling through the level as quickly as you can, especially Mario 1. I don't know, maybe this is just me because I'm coming from a Sonic background, but any platformer to me that has momentum to it, I inherently feel a desire to maintain that momentum as well as possible. It just feels very bad when you're going real fast, you got this flow going, and then you hit a block or something and you come to a dead stop and now you need to accelerate back up to your movement speed. It totally kills the pacing. It feels bad. It's something I don't want to do. And in the early Mario games, I think Miyamoto and Tezuka absolutely understood that and incorporated that into the game design because you have all those little things like the staircases. When I was playing through Mario 1, it felt so bad to hit all those blocks going up the staircase, trying to climb it, whereas when I got a little bit better and I was able to climb the staircases without touching anything and I could maintain my speed all the way through, oh, that feels so good, and that's what gives you the best shot at hitting the flagpole. You're meant to do that. It's very clearly intentional, and that kind of game design is all over the place in the early Marios, especially 1. And we can see that exact same thing in the Sonic games. If we go all the way back to the beginning, Green Hill, Act 1 in Sonic, this opening section here, if you watch a new player play this, they are going to get stopped repeatedly on all the rocks and all the little ledges. All of these things are intentionally placed here to stop you in your tracks, and then you gotta accelerate back up, and it doesn't feel very good, whereas when you watch an experienced player play through Green Hill, they know exactly what to do, where to do all those jumps to avoid all of these things trying to slow you down, and instead you can glide through all of this stuff, maintaining your speed perfectly the whole time. That exact same design that we see in Sonic, you can also see in Mario, absolutely. And because of that, when you replay these levels in Mario, you gain familiarity, and you know what to look out for, and you know how to avoid those things that slowed you down last time, so you can get through the level faster and more smoothly. I very much felt that that was an intentional part of Mario's design, and that specific aspect of it is the very core foundation upon which Sonic was built. But then here's the question, if that is the intentional design of Mario, which I absolutely think it is, at least for the first couple of games, then why are there all these side areas and secrets and collectibles and all these kinds of things that slow you down and pull you away from this kind of fast-paced gameplay? Well, I came to a realization while playing through these games and thinking about it a little bit more. I think it is to offer different players of different skill levels different experiences that they would find more enjoyable. This really came to me while I was playing through Mario 1 and Lost levels, and of course I'm trying to maintain my momentum throughout the entire level, but at the same time I also want power-ups to protect me if I end up making mistakes. But going for power-ups, it forces you to come to a stop. You gotta hit the block and then jump up to grab the power-up. That totally kills my flow. And I found myself sometimes going, you know what, screw it. I don't need the power-up. I'm just gonna go. I'd rather maintain my speed than get something that's gonna help me survive through the level. I'll just be good enough that I won't get hit and I won't need that power-up. That thought process made me realize that's it. That's why the Mario games are designed the way they are, and it's why the Sonic games are designed the way they are as well. When people talk about the original 2D Sonic games, a big part of it that they always mention is the exploration of the classic games, and I've always kind of had a bit of an issue with that being a big aspect of Sonic, because you never really collect anything that meaningful or valuable. All you're gonna get are rings, maybe some shields, maybe some extra lives. Nothing that's important to a player that's good enough to just get through the game without dying too much or taking too many hits. So, like, yeah, you can explore in the Sonic games, but there's nothing of real value to even find, so what's the point? But playing through these Mario games and having that moment of passing on a mushroom, it all became clear to me. It is a risk-reward decision. Yes, the Sonic games are built for you to try to blast through them as quickly as you can, but if you're not good enough to do that, then you're probably just going to end up dying and game overing if you try that. So for those players, they have the option of intentionally choosing to slow down and look around and try to collect some rings and shields and extra lives, things that will help them get through the game. That's something that I've never realized before. To me in Sonic, it was always the better you play, the faster you go, and if you make mistakes, you go slower. But it's not just that. You can also choose to sacrifice speed for survivability by going to all these side areas. And when I think about it, it makes a lot of sense. That's exactly how the general platforming of Sonic works. Like, yeah, there's a lot of instances where it's about messing up. If you're doing well, then you'll go fast, but if you mess up, you'll fall down to the lower route and you'll go slower. But also, you can choose to take things more slowly to prevent yourself from screwing up and falling in the first place. You know, a first-time player, an inexperienced player, they might come up to a difficult platforming sequence and take it very slowly and very carefully. But someone like me that's very experienced and knows what I'm doing and is familiar with the level design, I can be riskier. I can try to do this more quickly because I know that I can do it. And now that I think about it, exploring around in Sonic games is the exact same kind of decision. There's a side area there to go get an extra life. Well, I don't need that. I'm good enough that I know I won't run out of lives, so I'll just keep going. But another player that's not as good might go, I need that extra life. So they stop, they slow down, and they try to get the extra life. And if you think about it, slowing down in Mario to get a power-up is like a micro version of that same kind of decision. I need this power-up to help me get through the level versus I don't need that power-up. I'm good enough that I can just do it. And of course, Mario also has similar things to Sonic. Beyond just power-ups, you know, it's got side areas, extra lives, going out of your way to collect as many coins as you can, all to increase your chances of survival. Both games have this trade-off between speed and exploration to improve your survivability. In fact, points also factor into this as well, at least in Sonic, where you get an extra life, I think, every 50,000 points. I don't know if you get lives for Mario. I think you do. So that's just another factor that plays into it as well. And I gotta say, I think this is a really fascinating game design that is quite brilliant when you think about it. For your general players, for players that aren't very good, for kids, they can take these games as slowly as they want, and they can try to collect coins and rings and lives and do whatever they can to try to just beat the game. But as you play the game more and more, you get better and better, and you don't need these things as much, and maybe eventually you go, you know what, I don't need to go to that side area to get that extra life anymore. I don't need to slow down to get that mushroom. I don't need to collect all those rings and get that shield. I'm fine, I can just keep going, and as you get better and more confident, you get faster and faster, and that leads to very different gameplay depending on the player. For someone like me, I want to blast through as quickly as I can, so I don't stop to get all these collectibles and side things and extra lives. I don't want them, I don't need them. But other players do want them and do need them, and they get a totally different experience. Instead of getting a fast-paced, action-packed platformer, they get a more chill, explorative platformer. It's kind of genius in a way when you think about it. Both Mario and Sonic have basically two games contained within them depending on how you approach them. And personally, I gotta stop for a minute and just be stunned at the fact that I have learned a new layer of the fundamental design of the original 2D Sonic games. I feel like my third eye has been opened, and now I truly understand the games, but this is like the fourth time this has happened to me. Despite the fact that I've been playing these games for like 25 years and I've studied them and looked at them a lot, I am still, to this day, learning new things about the original 2D Sonic games. Holy shit, they are fucking incredible. Now, as good as this dual gameplay design of both Mario and Sonic is, I do want to criticize it a little bit in that once a player basically selects their playstyle, I feel like players have very little motivation to shift over to the other playstyle. In fact, most players probably aren't even aware that these different playstyles exist. Judging from the comments of my Mario video, a lot of people were saying that I was playing the Mario games wrong, but I don't think I was. I was just playing in the playstyle that they are not familiar with. Because I think when a person is playing through the Mario games, or also the Sonic games as well, really, and you're taking it slow and you're exploring around and you enjoy the game in that way, people tend to get stuck in a rut where they just continue to enjoy the game in that way. And even if they are playing the game for the 500th time, they still go out of their way to get all those side areas and get as many extra lives as they can and stuff, even if they don't really need them anymore. That's just how they play the game, so they continue playing that way. I think most players don't ever come to the realization that they can go, hey, I don't need to stop. I don't need that power-up. I don't need that extra life. I'm good enough that I can beat the game without it, so I'll pass on it this time. I think that's supposed to be the idea, that as you get better, you start passing on all these assists. But most players never really come to that realization, they just keep playing in the same way, so the way that I played through the Mario games feels very alien to most players. Most players are missing out on the other style of Mario gameplay, and Sonic gameplay by extension, that is really, really fun. But on the flip side, it's also the same for a player like me that is all about blasting through these games as quickly as you can. I feel no motivation to check out all these side areas and stuff. Like, playing through the Mario games, you know, I could go down a pipe and get to a side area and collect all these coins, but to me, I'm just like, why do that? It's just gonna slow me down. It doesn't actually help me complete the game or complete the level. And this is partially because I was using save states to circumvent lives, but still, overall, I didn't want to do it because it just felt bad to come to a stop, especially in Mario with the pipes, because there's like, you know, a 2-second window when you're going through a pipe where you're literally not doing anything, and that really cuts into the flow. And with Sonic games, you know, these are really big levels with so many different alternate routes and so many little secret areas for extra lives and stuff. And even though I've played these games hundreds and hundreds of times, there are so many areas of the levels that I just never go to. I have no motivation to go to them. I'm already plenty good that I can just blast through the whole game on my own. All of these side areas are completely pointless to me. So there's a big chunk of the Sonic games that I never really get to engage with. This is kind of one of the fundamental problems with lives to me, is that once you get good enough, you no longer need them, and so all of the opportunities to gain extra lives, you no longer engage with. You play less of the game and less of its challenges. I feel like if you want to do this dichotomous design that pulls players in two different directions for different playstyles, you should motivate the player to pursue both playstyles so they can see both facets of what the game has to offer. Because most players are not going to do these kinds of things just for the sake of it. You need some kind of extrinsic reward to make them go for it. So, like, for example, in Mario World, when that introduced secret exits and I can unlock extra levels, okay, well now I'm gonna start looking around. And I did. I found all the secret exits in that game and played all of the bonus levels, and it was very fun. What the Mario games need, in my opinion, is some kind of motivation to also try playing quickly, some kind of similar reward you get for beating levels in under a certain time. You know, that's something that the Sonic games often do through ranking systems and whatnot, but the Sonic games' more recent ones also have collectibles and things to motivate you to explore around some more. That, I think, offers a decent balance and motivation for players to try playing in both available ways, whereas Mario, they don't really do that, especially in the more recent games where we can see a shift in the design philosophy of Mario away from playing for speed and more towards that slower, more exploratory type of gameplay. And I think that makes a lot of sense for Mario, because most players seem to lean toward playing these games a little bit more slow-paced, and so the game's design over time shifted towards facilitating that more and more, which then makes sense why I enjoy those games a little bit less, as they are going further away from the playstyle of these games that I prefer. Personally, I'm not really someone that cares much for slow-paced, explorative 2D platformers. Like, I've never really liked the Yoshi games. And people were telling me, well, you didn't like these Mario games because you were playing them like Sonic games, but I've tried playing them slower and more exploratorily, and I didn't enjoy it. That's why I decided to try to play them quickly here. You could say that's me playing them like Sonic, but I would say that it's me playing them like Mario, because Mario games and Sonic games are more similar than you may think. In fact, before playing all the 2D Marios, I was thinking I might do a video comparing Mario vs. Sonic through the ages, comparing lots of similar games, you know, Mario 64 versus Sonic Adventure, Mario Wonder versus Sonic Superstars, and of course, the original 2D Mario games versus the original 2D Sonic games. But now that I've played the original 2D Mario games, it really doesn't make any sense to compare them at all, because in a way, the Sonic series is an extension of the Mario series. So much of the game design of Sonic comes from Mario. The development of Mario was part of the development of Sonic. In that way, Sonic is kind of similar to something like Yoshi's Island or Wario Land, where it's a branch of Mario game, where it shifts into its own different direction. And that is pretty cool. As a fan of both Mario and Sonic, the fact that they have this kind of connective tissue, I dig it.